Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. As always, I am Chris, and I am here with Patrick.
Hey.
And it's just us today.
It's just us.
It's kind of sad, kind of lonely in here.
I mean, we watched a movie where there are 9 lives today, and we're like 7 lives short.
Yeah, or maybe even more than that. I don't know. we're both kind of living half lives today.
Yeah.
But no, Steven can't make it this week. So it's just going to be a good little, what I call heads up podcast where it's just two of us.
Steven was at a wake and he violated some superstitions, and we're not sure what happened from there.
He was going to be here on time, but he had to walk. He couldn't go directly home from the wake. so he's walking around somewhere. And of course, if those references escape you, it's probably because you did not watch Pagpag 9 Lives, the movie we watched this week from the Philippines. But before we start discussing that, we like to talk about what else has been going on in our lives, especially as relates to horror media consumption. Not a lot to report from me, but what have you been up to, Patrick?
I've been up to a few things. I'll keep it quick, but I have been really enjoying watching Garth Marenghi's Dark Place on Amazon Prime. It stars Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows. So if you're a fan of What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, this should be right up your alley. It's presented as this 80s sort of sci-fi horror / medical drama TV show that's just terribly produced on every level, intentionally so, of course, on the creative team's behalf. And it's all presented as if it's this insane product of the mind of this fictional horror writer, Garth Marenghi. It's very funny just in how intentionally inept it is from top to bottom, and, just truly delightful.
I actually had a former coworker who was obsessed with Garth Marenghi's Dark Place and recommended it to me. One of the weirdest individuals I have ever known. And I've been fascinated with the idea since then. Never seen it. Maybe I should now that it's streaming.
You definitely should. It's super easy, super quick watch. 6 episodes, 30 minutes apiece, so you can knock it out really fast.
That's it?
Yeah,
only 6 episodes?
That's it, man. Yeah,
that's
it. Also stars Richard Ayoade, who is incredible as well. If you like horror, if you have an appreciation for filmmaking and snarky, sort of subversive comedy, probably up your alley.
Is that a British show?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the whole cast is British.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. What else have you been up to?
Also, have been reading the works of Julia Groferrer over the last few months. She's a graphic novelist and just makes extraordinary, unnerving, unsettling little horror short stories, often period pieces, often with feminist subtext to them, often with a little bit of dark humor. She has a very bleak view of the world, and her storytelling is just fascinating and memorable. Every one of her books that I've read so far, I kind of go back and reread afterwards to catch little things that I may have missed the first time around, because it's very intense, subtle, kind of layered storytelling. Recently read her book Laid Waste and really enjoyed that. So check out Julia Groferrer. That's spelled Grofrer. And lastly, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, how did you discover this person?
I think honestly, just on the recommended, the staff picks shelf at my local comic shop, Vault of Midnight. They're on top of all the good shit in the comic book world. And just her stuff caught my eye. She has this very sort of anxious ink line to her work. And it just immediately drew me in.
I've been wondering that because it's like every week you have some new book or new artist or something that you've discovered. How does one learn this power? You know?
you just have good comic store employees in your life who, you know, share your tastes, or even in some cases know your taste. Sometimes they're just like, you need to check out this. This one I think was just on the staff picks shelf though.
Nice.
Yeah. And speaking of comics, I'll throw in a final plug that's completely unrelated to horror. If you just can't get enough of the Amon crew, specifically me, talking about bullshit that I like, check out the podcast Graymalkin Lane. As a few of you may know, I'm a huge X-Men nerd and have an ongoing diary of my journey through reading every X-Men comic ever going on at the Instagram account Neverending X-Men. And I was recently invited to be on Graymalkin Lane, the podcast, for an episode in which we put Charles Xavier, Professor X, on trial for his many misdeeds, morally ambiguous decisions that he's made throughout his publication history. It's a really fun panel discussion kind of thing. It's way longer than it should be, but if you're into Professor X, go listen to me and a bunch of other really smart, really fun people nerd out about it and find out what we ended up deciding as far as just how evil the guy is.
I'm not that into X-Men, but I am into courtroom dramas. Would I appreciate it?
I think you might, because there's some 12 Angry Men kind of stuff going on where I thought I felt one way about Xavier, and then listening to the rest of the jury kind of made me go, you know what, you have a point there. He might not be as bad as I thought he was. Or on the other side of the scale, you know, he might not be quite the savior of mutant kind that I thought he was.
That's given me flashbacks to when I had jury duty, which was one of the biggest real life horror experiences in my life.
Oh God.
But you know what? I think we missed, speaking of comics, I think we missed some Spawn news as non-news.
Oh, we did. Yeah, there's a writer for the Spawn movie now, right? A new writer?
Well, I was thinking about we actually hit the pavement and we sought out some Spawn news at Motor City Nightmares. I wasn't there, but you and Steven were.
Oh, yeah. You know, I'm going to say that was all... Steven and I got some very inside baseball kind of talk about Spawn and our Todd father, Todd McFarlane. But I want to say it was all very what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and I'm not going to share those details on the show. However, you know, Chris, I'm sure you can back me up that it was juicy. It was amusing. And if you're an Amon fan out there, whoever happens to meet us at a con or run into one of us in real life, ask us for the dirt. We'll share. But I'm not gonna spill that on air.
But we don't need to spill it, but suffice to say, you know, we meaning you, met a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who in tone that maybe this is never gonna happen, the new Spawn movie. But that's why Spawn news is not news.
I can neither confirm nor deny what conversation I had about that.
Okay.
I mean, that's the non-news. The Spawn news is that there's actually a writer for the Spawn movie now, I think, right? Wasn't that the little news bite that we did actually dig up this week?
I can't curate that. I don't know. Spawn news goes in one ear and out the other for me.
Yeah, well, Google that.
All right. So with that, I guess we'll move on to our main attraction here. Pagpag 9 Lives, a Filipino film. This is a movie chosen by the Wheel of Death quite at random. And, you know, it seems like the Netflix catalog is increasingly filled with foreign films. Not that that's a problem. I think that was kind of a surprise when we started our journey that we were encountering as many foreign films as we were. But now when I look at the catalog, it seems like every third movie is a foreign film. So,
well, and it sort of makes me wonder too, you know, I mean, I think it's great, obviously, that Netflix is building out that selection, but it also makes me wonder, you know, if you're a Filipino viewer in the US, you know, what's out there? Are you excited at all by the selection of Filipino films that's available to you? Is it just the bottom of the barrel? Is it a fairly average representation of, your country's cinematic output. I'm just curious how this stuff actually plays to the, I guess, intended audience.
Yeah, I know I did research and see that this was actually one of the highest grossing Filipino movies in the year it came out. So it's not bottom of the barrel. That said, I don't really know how mature the Filipino film industry is. I know I've actually spent a little bit of time in the Philippines. I had a friend who lived there for a few years, and they're watching Star Wars in the cinema. They're watching American movies. And you can go on the street and you can get a bootleg DVD of a new release. In my case, it was Unfriended for $1 or less.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say, based on the quality of Pagpag 9 Lives, that the Filipino film industry is at least more robust and mature than the Emirati film industry.
At first glance, anyway. So this is a movie. It's about it takes its title from a Filipino word. It actually has two meanings. One is, I guess, scavenged food that poor people in the Philippines will scavenge and reuse from dumpsters and things like that. But it also literally means to shake off the dust or dirt. So the reason they use that for leftover food is obvious, but I guess there's a superstition where if you go to a funeral, if you don't dust yourself off and or if you walk directly home from the funeral, it's bad luck. The souls of the dead might just follow you. That's kind of what we get here in this movie. There's an inciting incident there's a cold open that's not really connected to the rest of the movie, in which a woman goes to her dead boyfriend's funeral. The boyfriend has committed suicide, seemingly because of a dispute they had or a breakup they had, and she goes home and someone she's living with is like, "Did you do the Pagpag?" And she's like, "I don't believe in that stuff." And then you see the ghost of her dead boyfriend in the room, and she's like, "Ah!"
Well, yeah, and I mean, this is the first of multiple pretty bad shit moments in this movie. She's looking at a picture of herself and the deceased boyfriend, and then hears, senses some sort of spectral presence in the room behind her, turns around, and then the picture has been cracked in the frame, and the boyfriend's expression is turned from a smile to a frown. Then she looks up, and the, I guess, spectral presence of his corpse is all of a sudden hanging from the ceiling behind her by a rope. It's a very over-the-top opening to the movie, and I didn't really see any of it coming, and it kind of made me go, I mean, as much as a reenactment of, I guess, a suicide in the first 5 minutes of a movie goes, I greatly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it too, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the movie, but I was thinking about that. I assume that, a lot of people in the Philippines are familiar with this, Pagpag superstition. So it's like if you were making a movie about the Ouija board or something in America, you might start with just kind of a cold open, or Bloody Mary, let's say. You might start with some girls playing Bloody Mary on a sleepover, and then the mirror shatters and the ghost comes out of the mirror, and they're like, but that's probably not going to be your whole movie. The whole movie is going to be like, oh, we got to solve the mystery of Mary Fear, who that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the bulk of this movie is a little more fleshed out than that. Basically, there's kind of two parallel groups of protagonists that meet up. One is this boy named
Cedric.
Yes. And he is kind of, would you agree that he's kind of a piece of shit?
Cedric is a fucking douchebag. Cedric is my number one problem with this movie, because he is a piece of shit until about halfway through, when all of a sudden he kind of turns into our hero, because basically he needs to be. There's no real motivation for him to do so. And honestly, Cedric may have been my biggest problem with this. production.
Yeah, we'll get into all that, but Cedric is a young man who has a group of friends, and they're just doing teenager stuff. They just hang out. They're having a good time. There's some they have some issues which we'll probably talk about, and then we have our other hero Lenny, who with her family runs a funeral parlor, and
also a soup business.
Oh yeah.
They've got multiple hustles. They got a side hustle or two.
They do. They sell like street food in the front, funeral parlor in the back, something like that. And their paths meet when Cedric and his friends end up like driving all night, and they arrive at the funeral home just as Lenny is receiving the corpse of one Roman. That's his name, Roman, whose wife has brought him in. It's a horribly scarred body, and they either deliberately or accidentally transgress the norms. They violate the superstitions of visiting a wake or running the wake, and then when they go home, they realize, of course, not doing the Pagpag, they go directly home. They start to be picked off one by one by some sort of dark spirit. And it's up to these kids to figure out what the hell is going on and stop the curse, make atones for their breach of the superstition before they all die. There's a lot more to it than that, but this has so many twists and turns. It kept me guessing. The whole, I thought this is like I think when we talked about this, how we were going to watch this movie last time, Steven was like, that's not an unfamiliar story, like teenagers being haunted by a dark spirit. Yeah. I went into this expecting a very simple story, kind of like Kuntilana or something. But there's a lot of subplots to this. There's a lot of surprises. It's definitely more complicated than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying earlier there are like some 1920 London Fear Strikes Again level twists here, and I don't know if I would have said that initially, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, absolutely. Like, there are some jaw droppers in this, and they work, basically. I mean, they're not just stupid. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, before we even get to any twists, I would say this does a decent job of setting up a number of characters who I cared about more than I expected to. I guess, again, because we all probably had, to some degree, that same expectation that Steven did, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is another one of those movies, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, Cedric certainly registers as a character. I mean, I've already made my views on Cedric known. He certainly comes across. Lenny, I really enjoyed as a character. She comes across so strongly immediately. Cedric almost runs her over with his car twice, and she chews him out. She seems very capable, feels like a real person, decently written, nicely performed. There's a charming little chubby younger brother of hers named Mok, who never speaks, but is always drawing cryptic pictures.
Yeah, it's, something about these horror movies, particularly these foreign horror movies, is like, what if there was a child who never spoke? like Sinister Circle did the same thing, I'm remembering. Or it's like this child never speaks, and it's like the greatest horror they can think of. But I'm like, I don't want that child to speak. There's nothing this child has to say that I'm interested in. But he's cute. He is cute. He's cute. And in peril constantly. And he gets even more cute when he cries and screams. So
we've got, is it Lucy, Roman's widow? Is that her name?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
She's
Roman's widow, Lucy.
She's kind of a compelling, as I think you said, mysterious figure. We've got Ava, who is this older woman who's always hanging out at the funeral parlor and seems to be associated with this death in some way and is very superstitious. I don't know.
It's a relative of Lucy. We know that. But she's like, she's the one who shows up and she's like, whoa. You can't sweep the floor before a wake. Right. And everyone's like, what?
Right. I mean, none of it is like the most compelling characters that you've ever seen. But there's a decent set of characters where I was like, I know these people, I know who they are, they seem relatively real, and like a cut above the several sort of teenage cannon fodder people who also exist in this movie, because there are plenty of those as well.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And a lot of them have foils. They play off each other. Like Lenny is constantly kind of at odds with, I think, her uncle, and at least one of them's an uncle and one of them's a relative or a friend or something, but they run the funeral parlor with her. They're always drunk. They're kind of comic relief characters. And she's always like, come on, guys, we're supposed to embalm the body now. And they're like, but we're drinking. And so that's cute. You have the girlfriend of Cedric, who has her heart just stepped on by Cedric multiple times and becomes sympathetic for that reason, because she's like, aren't we in love? And he's like, I told you, I'm not a man about commitments and stuff. Just like, oh my God, what a piece of shit.
Well, and that's one of those interesting, this is one of those movies where sentences, phrases, words of English are interspersed with the Filipino on a regular basis. And maybe you can speak to how much that's a regular occurrence when you were in the Philippines, Chris. But it was interesting to me, as it is in like a lot of the Bollywood films, which English words end up coming through as English. And one of them was exclusive. He kept saying, we're not exclusive, but just the word exclusive, he would say in English.
Interesting. I can't speak to that specifically, but English is like the second official language of the Philippines. There's a lot of language. Like the Philippines, people have to understand, it's like 10,000 islands. So it's very hard to make any broad statement about the Philippines as a country, because it's so culturally diverse between the thousands of islands. But I did notice that Cedric and especially his father use a lot of English, and we meet his father in like one scene. And he's like, I told you, you're never going to amount to anything if you don't keep your temper under control. And you can tell he's like, a business person, kind of wants his son to be a business person. And so I think that maybe the father uses English more in the home, as a class signifier, and to encourage this kid to use English and become like an international businessman.
Well, the father clearly loves a good class signifier, because he lives in a fucking mansion with a water feature next to the stairs. There's just a fucking like waterfall next to do you notice that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, these are the very ostentatious houses in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, even the sort of cannon fodder characters often have a detail. There's one girl who I guess her characteristic is that she's vain, which could be boring, except like we see her in her bedroom and she has like 15 selfies of herself framed on the wall above her bed that are all like very similar selfies. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. It was also funny. I mean, I guess this is the second X-Men reference of the day, but Cedric's bedroom is just filled with Wolverine memorabilia. He has a Wolverine poster on either side of his bed.
Yeah. So all good stuff. Lots of little fun details. But yeah, it's. I was surprised at how, once it does take a while to get going. I think it takes a long time to kind of set up the characters and get them in the same place at the same time. As you said, Cedric almost hits Lenny, 2 or 3 times with his car as a meet cute.
Yeah, their meet cute is him almost running her over. Like, there's, as the Netflix subtitles say, romantic music plays as she's like chewing him out and he's just being an absolute dick to her. Like, there's nothing charming about either of the 2 times that he almost hits her with his car, and yet these 2 end up becoming an item over the course of the film. I thought that was a little silly.
But yeah, there's a lot of that. But then, I was surprised at how much this movie kind of went into a slasher movie kind of formula, where you have a big section of the movie where there's these teenagers, they get separated, they get, spooked, they get chased, they get killed, and pretty creative kills that would be at home in any of the slasher franchises that we're familiar with.
Oh yeah. There were numerous sequences in this movie where I laughed loudly, like I guffawed in enjoyment, not with like derision for the film, but I was just like, that just happened,
Yeah. Yeah, and even stuff where it's like the continuity isn't always there in a delightful way. Like there's the one kill where like because the thing that's doing the killing for the most part is sort of this nebulous demonic entity that kind of becomes a monster, and we learn more about what or who it is later. But like he's killing the one girl, and like there's a close up of him like gouging her eyes out with his thumbs, but then like in the shot before, the shot after, he's just like holding her by the shoulders and like throwing her into the swimming pool and stuff.
Yes.
It's like they just kind of threw everything at the screen for these kills. But that was really the thing I liked the most about this movie. And I guess if I have a complaint, it's that there wasn't enough of it. It's kind of a long movie. A lot of it is kind of boring. When it goes for it, it's fantastic. But you still get that kind of low budget horror thing where people do a lot of standing around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a bit of a B movie feel to it. I think my favorite kill was when Ashley, who, if I remember correctly, is the vain girl you were just talking about with the selfies, is being pursued through her house. She's in her bedroom on the second floor, and the vengeful spirit monster thing is pursuing her, and she's at the top of the stairs. You absolutely know she's going to get knocked off the stairs and fall to her death off the stairs. Right. But it all plays out in such an unexpected, hilarious, and over-the-top way. Because normally what happens is someone crashes into a banister, smashes through, and falls down, right? We've seen that in a million movies. This woman flips over the banister and crashes to the floor, is not dead then, but then a chandelier just happens to fall and impale her after she's fallen over the stairs. Yeah. That was a double guffaw moment for me. That was a delight.
Yeah. They really had some fun with this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And the design of the monster I thought was highly amusing too. I don't know how much we can talk about it without getting into spoilers, but just this, I thought it was a visual feast to look at this monster in all of his forms.
Another kill scene that I enjoyed was the shower scene, which had some odd, like, sort of homophobic content in it. One boy is accusing the other one of being gay or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, now that you mention it.
Yeah, being gay for Cedric or something. I don't know. It was sort of
because at this point everyone thinks Cedric's like a murderer because Cedric's already like murderer adjacent in his everyday life.
Right.
And then like,
two or three people around him die.
Right. And so, yeah, the one friend is like, why are you standing up for Cedric? You have a crush on him, and there's some anti-gay dialogue in there. But
yeah. But the one kid who's been engaged in this conversation hits the showers at the gym and ends up being bludgeoned by, is it the shower head, I think?
I don't know. It was almost like something shot out of the shower head and hit him in the head, but I couldn't really figure out what it was. It was a little abstract for me.
Anyway, he's wounded, and the innovative and memorable thing about this scene to me was he ends up opening the shower door and like crawling out to try and get to the bench where his stuff is. And there was a POV shot for a moment where they smeared some like blood over a piece of plexiglass in front of the camera. So it was like you were seeing it from his perspective, trying to wipe blood out of his eyes. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I haven't seen that before, I like that.
Except for in James Bond.
Oh.
You see the
Does
blood.
That happen?
Well, no, it's when he shoots you and the blood comes down over the screen.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. I guess I was sort of pleasantly surprised just that this movie did a lot more than it really needed to do, I guess. You could have been... The filmmakers could have been there just going through the motions, making a turn of the crank movie. But I had the sense of, if not necessarily like brilliant, masterful filmmakers, people who actually cared and wanted to do something fun and unique,
Yeah, and we're kind of grading on a curve because we've seen so many movies that are just, don't have any inspiration behind them.
Yeah, obviously.
But yeah, it's so it is, even though this like it's when you say it goes above and beyond, like it doesn't really go above and beyond. It just does what it should do. If you're making a movie, you should have some scenes where you actually cared about what you're doing a little bit. But we're used to seeing a lot of movies where people don't feel that way.
Well, what I'm saying is it goes above and beyond the bare minimum that would be needed to make a movie. You know, like you can make. We've seen a lot of movies. We've seen a lot of cases where people have made a movie. It's there's a story that's at least somewhat discernible, but there's no characters you'll remember or care about, or that anyone put any effort into. There's nothing memorable about it. At the very least, they went above and beyond the bare minimum expectations to try and do something a bit special.
Mm-hmm. And every spooky scene is fun or memorable in some way, I think. Mm-hmm. I think, to the extent that I didn't enjoy the movie, it's just because, again, kind of signal to noise, and the amount of screen time that's spent on that spooky stuff doesn't quite justify watching the rest of the movie, really.
Yeah, I did break this up into chunks, largely by necessity, because I was doing a bunch of Sunday afternoon errands yesterday, and I watched this in, probably some 15, 20, 30-minute chunks. And it probably benefited from that. I may have gotten bogged down in it the same way you did if I just sat there for the entire hour and 46 minutes.
And I always like a movie or a show or something that introduces me to a new superstition. I don't, even if it's not a real world superstition, like just that something that hangs the action on something interesting that I haven't seen before. Like, the whole idea that like, oh, don't go directly home after a funeral. That's bad luck.
Well, and I was going to say, boy, did you get your money's worth out of this one, because like these kids go into the funeral parlor and violate literally, 9 different superstitions in fucking 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, it's like, don't sweep the floor of the funeral before a wake.
Don't cry
look
on
in
the
the
coffin.
mirror. Don't cry in the coffin. Don't take food home from the wake.
Don't take money home from the wake.
Don't
which
take
I mean,
money home from, yeah.
Really, we all probably could have, figured that one out.
Don't wipe the coffin with the handkerchief. Mm-hmm. Oh, Cedric, because he gets hit with that rock, don't attend the funeral with a wound.
Right.
It's interesting because when you list these off, some of them have pretty obvious like reasons why those are mores in the Philippines or in any society. It's like, yeah, you probably don't want people attending a funeral if they have like a open wound. It could be bad for like, public health, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah, I mean,
stuff.
all these kids, there are 9 kids, right?
Well, I think there's more than that.
Are there? I don't know. There's
we know we're taking 9 lives, and there's
right.
more people than just the kids who come under the gun.
Right. Yeah. There are 9 different transgressions, and the vengeful spirit is out to punish them all.
Out to punish them all. I like there's an episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker that I really like for the sole reason that it starts with I think the premise of the episode is that there's a man who becomes possessed by basically a dead guy. But the way he gets possessed is he makes a left turn in front of the guy's funeral procession and cuts off the hearse. Oh. And like the hearse slams on its brakes, but I guess it's implied that the spirit kept going.
Wow. I love that.
I've always liked that.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we should probably review it and then get to the spoiler room, because if you think we've explained the movie, you got another thing coming.
We got some J-size twists coming for you.
Maybe not J-sized, but J adjacent.
J adjacent. So, Chris, would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
I'm going to give it a cue it. Kind of a low cue it. Again, we're grading that curve, I feel like, because we've just seen so many demoralizing movies that anything that turns the dial or has some imagination in it, just you're like, oh god, this is such a breath of fresh air. If it's in your queue, should you ever watch it? Will you ever watch it? I don't know, but I got to give credit where it's due. In terms of all the horror in this movie, like I said, I thought it was really fun to watch. Lots of fun stuff I hadn't seen before. Enough plot, enough twists that I'm really excited to talk about them in the spoiler room. And that's got to count for something. So, cue it. Patrick.
I'm going to give it a cue it too. I guess for a little bit of flavor, I will give it a high cue it. I found it quite enjoyable. there's almost nothing that I can truly count as like a strike against it, where I would tell someone not to watch it, but also I guess it didn't quite blow my mind enough to give it that resounding view it. I had fun with it. It surprised me pleasantly. And if you're looking for something a little different, check it out.
Yeah, I think the main fault of the movie for me was just kind of the pacing.
Yeah.
Kind of drags a lot for me in some spots.
Yeah, definitely could have tightened it up. I mean, there's probably almost no movie. No, actually, never mind. I take that back. I was going to say there's probably almost no movie that wouldn't benefit from being cut to 90 minutes. But then I just thought of all the really long movies that people hate and I love, like The Irishman. Don't cut The Irishman to 90 minutes.
Just take off that last half. Just take out that last hour of The Irishman. That was useless and dumb and boring.
Oh yeah, that served no purpose. That was my least favorite part of The Irishman.
All right.
We're trolling. We're trolling.
Yeah, we're trolling. I was going to say, should we clarify we're joking about that? No, that's
we probably should, because otherwise people will be like, oh, that was a great take on The Irishman. I agree.
People are going to be...
Our fans are better than that, though.
That's my indicator. That's like my barometer for if I'm talking to someone who is a victim of toxic masculinity. If I'm talking to a man who's like, that last hour of The Irishman was boring, I'm like, oh, there's a part of you that's dead inside.
I don't know. I mean, I've definitely spoken to people of both genders who hold that view. So I don't know.
Oh, well. All right. Well, I guess we'll head down to the spoiler room. In the meantime, though, if you want to check us out online, you should do that. Every horror movie on Netflix.com or at AmonCast, EHMON Cast, on the usual platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can reach out to us there. Let us know what you thought of Pagpag 9 Lives. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to rate us or review us on your podcast service of choice. Helps the show immensely. I was going to try and make a joke about 9 lives, but I can't. There's nothing there.
Oh, I'm so curious to know what that would have been.
All right. Well, we can go down to the spoiler room now, and we will tell you all about those 9 lives, what they mean, what they do. So go watch the movie for yourself or stick around, and we will see you down there in just a second. Welcome back. We're down here in the spoiler room getting ready to spoil everything about Pagpag 9 Lives. And the biggest spoiler for me was that Pagpag is not the name of a cat. And I'm very disappointed.
A cat?
Yeah, I saw 9 Lives and I thought this was going to be about a cat.
Right.
No, but I don't even know where to begin. Where to begin with the spoilers here?
Oh my God, there's so much. I mean, okay, I'm going to attempt to start from what I think is the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning of the chronology here.
Right. I think the first thing we find out, if I remember correctly, is that Ava, the superstitious woman of indeterminate relation to Lucy and Roman, is actually... Wait, what is her relation? I forget now.
She's Lucy's sister. I don't know if that's a surprise. It was unclear to me until later on in the movie, but I don't know if they hold that back. It might have just been
I felt like they did, because I felt like I was constantly questioning, like, why is this old woman, I mean, not old woman, but older woman, whatever, hanging around, like, always having these issues with what's going on. It turns out she's Lucy's sister.
I think it's a red herring. I think they want us to think that she is a witch or something because she's super concerned with superstition and tradition.
Oh, and at a certain point in the movie, our main characters think she is. You know, they're like, get away from me, witch. People make the sign of the cross at her and stuff.
And Lucy Roman's the deceased Roman's widow is very chill by comparison. She's like, oh, relax. Yeah, we're just like having a little funeral.
Yeah. But it turns out Lucy is not so innocent.
Not so innocent.
So early in the film, Lucy tells a version of what has happened.
The original story that Lucy tells, the widow, when she brings Roman in, is that, you know, there was a house fire, that she's pregnant, that this guy, Roman, got burned in a house fire, because he's horribly burned, and you don't see him clearly at first in the casket, but that stuck out to me because, like, Lenny's taking care of the body, and she's like, we fixed them all up. It just looks like he's sleeping, but in the background you can see, like, horrible scars all over the guy that they don't really explain. But he apparently...
Oh, right, because they specifically note that they did not embalm the body.
Right. And so Roman, apparently, according to Lucy, was burned horribly in a house fire, and for the last, 6 or 7 years has been dealing with complications from being horribly burned, which ultimately turned into skin cancer, of all things, which killed him.
Well, and from losing a child. She's just like, we've had a really hard time. They lost a baby. They had this house fire. Roman went through all this shit.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if they ever... Because there's a time gap here that's kind of weird. So in the true story of events, there's a whole bunch of years of unaccounted time where maybe, I guess, Roman did survive the fire and get cancer. I don't know. But... we find out from one of Lenny's funeral home friends who somehow finds this out on the street, or he knows it as an urban legend. He's like, no.
Saw it on Reddit.
Saw it on Reddit. He says, here's what happened. Roman and his wife, their kid died. Their toddler died. So Roman went and made a deal.
It was an infant, man.
It was a baby. It was a baby.
It was babby.
You're right. Infant child died. So Roman decided to go make a deal with the devil, which is always so easy in these movies to make a deal with the
Just
devil.
Call up the devil, be like, yo, I got a proposition for you.
I've been trying to make a deal with the devil. I can't find him. Is there an app? Do I have to find the right doll in my backyard?
Yeah, it's called The Devil.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, so Roman basically made a deal where if he takes 9 lives, he gets his baby back. So Roman, before the events of this movie, roamed the countryside murdering people until he killed 9 people, and then his baby came back to life as if by a miracle. But the townspeople didn't like that too much, so they came and they burned down their house, killing Roman and apparently the baby in the process. And Lucy was the sole survivor. Again, there's a weird time gap where this was years ago. So Roman maybe was just burned, but still alive until recently. Hard to say.
So that's twist number 1, sort of.
That's twist number 1. That's what's going on with Roman. And that explains why he's burned.
Twist number 2 is that Mok, the
chubby kid, the cute kid.
The chubby mute artist is actually Lucy and Roman's kid who died and then came back from the dead after Roman killed 9 people.
Right. So Mok, also known as Emmanuel, the name he had was given by Roman and Lucy, was an infant, died, came back to life because of the deal with the devil, and then was abandoned or presumed dead by Lucy and Roman in the house fire. Showed up at a church with burns on his back, but otherwise fine, and
and specifically, Ava rescued him from the fire.
Oh, right. Ava did. That's right. The sister did.
We get one of my most amazing jaw-dropper batshit shots in this movie is when Ava is relating this, and they flash back to it, and they show her holding baby Mok/Emmanuel, and then there's this fade where they superimpose a stained glass image of Mary holding baby Jesus, and it's perfectly superimposed over Ava and Mok. I lost my shit in that moment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Mok has now been adopted into Lenny's family by Lenny's now deceased parents. And he never speaks, so he couldn't tell anyone. He wouldn't know anyway because he was an infant. I don't know why he never speaks in this movie.
It's never really revealed why he's mute, other than that he needs to be for purposes of the plot.
I don't even know if he needs to be for purposes of the plot.
Actually, that's true, because I guess it's not like he'd be like, oh, I remember the fire when I was, 1 month old. We find this out, though, because he still has a scar on his back from the burns he sustained in the fire.
Well, I was worried. He starts talking at the end of the movie, but he doesn't have a lot to say. He's just like, "Oh, Lenny, whatever." But I assumed that they were setting that up so that, like, at a climactic moment, Mok could be like "Daddy" or something to Roman or something, and I'm so glad that they didn't do that, because like I thought that he was gonna save the day by like identifying as the infant who was given up, but they never do that. So I'm like, that's good, because he has a family now. He's been adopted. He does not, much like in The Rise of Skywalker, he has no, his adopted family is his family. It's not like not like him talking and saying "Daddy" would be a catharsis of anything. But anyway, yeah. So that's twist number 2. That Mok is actually the infant son of Roman brought back from the dead. Mm-hmm. Is he immortal? Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? We'll have to find out in Pagpag 10 Lives.
Yeah.
But the third twist.
Maybe the biggest of them all,
is that the vengeful spirit monster thing that's been stalking the kids for the whole movie is in fact Roman, because we've seen this thing's face a few times. It's fucked up. It's super burned, way more burned than Roman's face was in real life, but whatever.
It becomes clear that it's Roman, but why, how, we don't really know. We know that Roman was a murderer who made a deal with the devil and is now dead. But yeah, Roman's back as a spirit, apparently he's back on his bullshit, trying to take 9 lives in order to come back to life himself.
Right. He's trying to repeat basically the thing that he did the first time. He's not just worried about cleaning up after people who have violated wake mores. He's trying to claim another 9 lives so that he can reincarnate.
Yeah, because the kids, like, they do the right things. Like, the 2 kids are like, all right, so we did this. We, like, walked backwards from the cemetery back to the house. We burned all our clothes. We drank the holy water. We did whatever they're supposed to do to cleanse themselves and atone for what they did at the funeral home. They still get killed because Roman is just trying to take 9 lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets them. He gets his 9 lives. Some loose accounting there. He ends up, I think, inadvertently killing Lucy, who is also pregnant. So killing Lucy and his new unborn child, which is God. 2 lives.
The drama.
I want to know what happened between the house fire and the beginning of this movie, because 7 years have passed, because that's how old Mok is.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
We've had half burned Roman in some state between alive and dead for 7 years.
Yeah.
Also conceiving children with Lucy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Clearly the burns did not cover his entire body.
I need to see another movie set in that time period. So yeah, and then we end up with a pretty run-of-the-mill confrontation between Roman and the survivors. Because, what's Roman's... Oh, I think Roman now just is trying to kill more people to bring back Lucy at this point, at the end, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's just mad. He's just, lost his humanity.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he also wants his unborn baby back as well. Mok is threatened horribly in the process by Lucy. That upset me. Poor Mok did not deserve that. That was
Mok he cried a lot in this movie.
That was, yeah. I was like, this is fucked. Don't do this to your kid. Although she didn't realize at that time that it was her kid. But then it was actually even more upsetting once they did go, "That's your kid, lady." And she was like trying to embrace him and like comfort him after she had just been like actively choking him out. That was upsetting.
Yep.
But yeah, Roman comes back from the dead, starts menacing Lenny, almost is on the verge of just murking Lenny with what is it? He has a big spike or a piece of wood or something that he's about to stab her with.
Oh yeah.
And then at the last moment, Cedric stabs him.
Yeah, Cedric's taken the sword out of like some statue of Ares or something.
Ares.
But like, and that's the thing.
Yeah, could there be a statue of Ares in a Catholic church?
I don't know. he is still kind of an asshole. Like I was looking for his arc, and there's one moment where he's like steps forward. He's like, don't kill Lenny, kill me instead to take your goddamn lives or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's very passing, and he's just
it's forced.
He's a jerk from beginning to end.
Yeah, and then we have kind of a silly moment in the final scene, like. Lenny is in the hospital recovering. She's like there with Mock, who is signing her cast. And Cedric is on his way there. He's texting her. He's like, I miss you. And then almost immediately after he walks into the hospital, it's like, why are you texting her you miss her when you're about to see her? She's like down the hall. Tell her you miss her when you see her. I can see you've never been
in love, Patrick.
No, but tell her you miss her when you see her, when you walk through the door.
He's in the elevator and he just missed her that bad.
Just in that 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But then they all turn around and Roman and Lucy are looking at them in the hospital. They're still there. And the movie. There. It's one of those horror movie endings that I hate, but it's fine, whatever.
And it's like, that something's gone wrong where you're like, shocking ending is like two normal looking people in the hospital just standing there being like, what's up?
Oh, they do not look normal. Aren't they kind of like, there's some weird makeup on. They look undead, I would say, from what I remember.
I did really enjoy the makeup effects on Roman. Like I said, I liked how he looked when he was a monster, and then when he's dead and he's coming back to life and starts to look more like a human, but he's still got like the creepy eye. Like that. The evil eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good film.
Enjoyable.
This movie kind of reminded me of Pet Sematary a little bit.
Yeah, with all the resurrection.
Yeah, the theme of this guy who's just kind of caught in an endless loop of trying to kill people to bring his loved ones back to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't really investigate it thematically at all.
Yeah, not really. I mean, the movie's overall point, I mean, this is more or less a faith-based horror film. This film definitely wants you to have faith in God. That's, talked about. The main Lucy and Roman's main sin is not having faith in God and not accepting their fate and turning to the devil.
The Philippines, as I've experienced it, is a pretty heavily religious society.
Yeah.
Wikipedia says 88% of the population is Christian.
Yeah.
But I went there around New Year's one year, and they were having like Christmas parades still. They were singing Christmas carols in the streets. Like Christmas lasts like 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Wow.
That might be specific to the region I was in, like I said. But
interesting.
It was interesting to be like it's January, it's December 30th, or it's early January, and I'm like being awoken in the morning by like people playing Silent Night, going down the streets in the caravan.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the film is not really interested in investigating, grief and our desire to return to the joyful memories that we had with our deceased loved ones, so much as it is telling you to, believe in Jesus and don't dishonor his teachings.
Maybe not believe in Jesus, but at least don't make a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Pagpag 9 Lives. What a film.
I'll give it another life. No, actually, you know what? I'll give my life up for it. I will give one life to Roman so that he only has 8 more to go. That's how much I like this movie.
Yeah, if I had 9 lives, I would give one to Roman too.
Sure.
He deserves to come back. He got some bad luck.
No, I only have 1 life, and I'll give it to Roman. He can have it. It's fine.
You're just so tired.
Yeah, Roman, have it. Get at me.
Well, I think it's my turn to pick. You want to know what I think we're going to watch next time?
What do you think we're going to watch next time? And then I'll let you know if I also think we're going to watch it next time.
Ooh, there are some good things I could pick, but I am going to pick...
something that's not good?
Population 436.
What the fuck? What's that?
I just saw this in the catalog. The description says, a census taker sent to investigate why Rockwell Falls has had the same population, 436, for more than a century, soon wishes he hadn't taken the job.
Huh.
I'm picking this movie because it is very similar to a movie concept I had, which was about a census taker investigating anomalies in some small rural town and discovering that as the population goes down, the entries in the annual Scarecrow Festival go up. And turns out the townspeople are turning people into scarecrows.
I could not see that twist coming as you explained that premise.
Yeah. So we'll see if I need to sue someone for infringement on my intellectual property when we watch Population 436. That'll be in 2 weeks.
And with all this census taker talk, I'll try mightily to resist any fava beans and a nice Chianti jokes.
Yeah, it's the census is about to come out, right? So
isn't it already out?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it already out?
I don't know.
All right. Well, that'll be in 2 weeks. Population 436. So we'll catch you then. In the meantime, like I said, follow us online. Reach out to us on social media. We love to talk to our listeners. Or write to our listeners. I guess we're talking to you now. Anyway. Well, that's all we got, I think. So until then, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
And there's no Steven, but he'll be back next time. See you later.
We gave Steven to Roman.
Yeah, we gave him the Roman. But it's all right. In the next 2 weeks, Patrick and I are going to kill 9 people to bring him back. So don't worry, he'll be back.
So until then, have faith in God, and goodbye.
Goodbye.